The other thing was there was some confusion over the findings outline. Okay, so what I wanted you to do was just either save it. So you do want to make it specific for your client. So I did see some people put the client's name on here, which is good. So that's a good thing. But because you want to make it specific to Jeffries Pipe. Okay, you don't want to just hand out the same thing to every client. We are trying to make our survey supposed to be specific to them. So what I suggested was you could either cut and paste on a new document or save this for this survey and delete the things that aren't relevant. Okay, there's going to be some things that aren't relevant that you don't want to include in your findings. The one thing, you know, we don't want to just completely blow the client away with all these problems either. So, oh, okay, yeah, there was confusion over the 2-day survey with the billable hours. So the first day accrual, all of that pertains to consulting. It has nothing to do with the analyst running a 2-day survey. It has nothing at all to do with that. It's when you get your go and you're selling consulting, and the first day accrual is a calculation. The only time they really collect that typically is going to be on if the client ends it at the end of the first day, and they can do that, right? Or we can end it, you know, if whatever, for whatever reason. So that's when there's going to be a first day fee that they collect on. Otherwise, they don't collect until we invoice at the end of every week. We expect payment at that time. That's our typical invoice. So, okay, yeah. All right, so this is what this was. So should be very quick, the outline. This is meant to be just, I do this so you can save time. So all you have to do is cut and paste or delete what's not relevant, it's your talking points for your close, etc. Okay, does everybody understand this? Yes? Okay. Okay. Good. Very good. All right. Now, and most of you did it, but I think some of you got a little confused. Okay. So then I want to show you, probably lost it, the illustrations. Oh, this is day 4. That's why. Okay, so I'm going to show you again how to do tax illustrations. And I know some of you had a really hard time hearing Eric, and I apologize for that. But I'll just go through this, and then I will show you in my findings how I talk about the output. Okay, so the worksheets are in STS, the opening documents. Worksheet exit strategy, worksheet net worth, worksheet PVI, which we're not really talking about this week, worksheet tax illustration. Okay, so that's here. So I've printed my tax illustration and my net worth and my exit strategy worksheets. Okay, then I'm gonna fill out these worksheets. So you want to do this pretty quickly after you open, okay? Because then you can get Tavis working on it if you can. If the client has tax returns, will they have tax returns 100% of the time? No, they won't, because they just won't. But they may have to bring them in other words, but that's okay. So because they don't realize that they hear financials that they don't know. So it doesn't matter. We can get it the next morning and run the illustration then. But if possible, we'll run it, in the middle of the first day. Okay. So part of the information you're going to get in your opening, and part of it you might sit down after your opening quickly with the owner to get the rest. Okay. So instructions for savings and exposure. those are the pages of the tax returns that we need. So the 1040 is the personal, the 1120 S65 is the business, the company return, the corporate return or partnership return. Okay, and those are the schedules that they need. Okay, and you're going to send it to, email it to Tavis. So you would cam scan it. Do yourself a favor, if you haven't used Cam Scanner before or a similar app, test it on the weekend because you're going to need it next week. Okay, because honestly, again, you don't want to take photos and send them to Tavis. Each page, you want to cam scan and send it as one document. Okay, so just test it. It's super easy to do. Make sure you can do it, test it, try it out. It won't take long to try it, and you'll be good to go for next week because you're going to scan homework, you're going to scan the, possibly scan the financials, like the client's raw financials, you're going to scan the taxes. So you definitely want to know how to use your Cam Scanner, and you want to be able to send a PDF that has all the pages, not one page. Okay, so the net worth calculations you'll do separately. So I'm getting most of this information from either the opening or I'll sit down quickly with the client after I explain. You know, I always explain, so I'm going to be running a tax illustration that will show your exposure both personally and company-wise in terms of overpaying, how much you're overpaying, or how much you can expect to overpay in taxes, asset protection, so what do you have in place, so your asset exposure, your estate exposure, and we look at succession. So I'm going to send those in, and they will, tax will go through it. They go through it manually. They go through it systematically. It's tax attorneys that are doing that. They will send back an illustration, which I'll review with you tomorrow. It'll show your exposure, and it will be the basis for determining should we accept you as a client for tax. Okay, so the client's name already had the client W-2 wages. I got that in the opening. It says that Tim is taking a salary this year of $54,000. Jill has a few company perks, but no salary. So no W-2 wages for the spouse. Working company, Tim works at the company. Client's age, it says that Jill is 43, Tim is 40. 40, Jill is 43. It says Tim and Jill do not have a will or a trust. Then deferred compensation plan offered by company. There is an IRA, so they do have that. So yes. And then I'm going to go over here to the company information. So Taylor Electrical. I mean that'll be pre-printed if you print it out of STS. It'll be pre-printed. Projected year for illustration. I had tax returns from 2018, so 2019 is a projected year. Projected revenue for illustration, it says that sales should be 2019 should be 1.5 million, profit of 120,000, or 8%. Now, why do we do projected revenue? Because a lot of times it's higher than the previous year, and it will help your illustration. It'll make it savings better because we can save clients more when they make more. So that's why you would put in projected revenue and projected profit. So that's based on typically the current year, the unfiled year. And then projected annual growth after consulting, so 10%. I put a note down here that it says Tim feels that going forward they should have a minimum mandatory profit of 12%. They should grow 10% per year. So target 12% profit after consulting, projected annual growth of 10%. Does the company offer a retirement plan? Yes. And then name of the owners. I didn't really have to put this, but I did. Tim 100%. If there's any notes about changes in ownership, like partner exited, or if they change from C Corp to an S Corp or anything like that, I'm going to make a note here. Okay. So this is pretty simple. You send this in, and then you're going to send it to Tavis and copy your SSD, because then we know when you send stuff in. We know if we need to follow up if we're not getting an illustration back. Fax or email address, that will be on file. So you don't need to put that. Then we have the net worth calculations. So you can either use this worksheet and ask the client for the information, or if they have a personal financial statement, you can attach that in. Okay. So the net worth is just their personal net worth, all their personal assets, all their liabilities, estimated value of business. So some clients have some idea of whatever they think. If the CPA tells them it's usually like the book value, the net worth, the client, I mean, it's obviously just a guess, but we incorporate that into their assets for the purposes of their asset exposure and also their estate. So estimated value of business, percent of client ownership, client's business value, their net worth, face value of life insurance. It is included for the purposes of this because it's added to an estate or estate exposure. And then estate net worth would be 1.7. Now that's a fluid number. That changes by the minute, obviously. And so it doesn't have to be to the penny, because what we're showing is an exposure range for all of this, and what probate fees would be, et cetera. So anyway, it doesn't have to be to the penny. So I used to just sit there and quickly fill that out with the client and get that sent in, because then Tavis is working on my behalf. And if there's any questions, I have time to ask, and then I'll be ready to go with my illustration for my findings the next day. Okay, so it's pretty simple to fill out. Okay, then we have the exit strategy. This is very good for showing the client where they want to be versus where they are. So you'll see that with Jeffrey's pipe again. But anyway, so again, we're going to ask the client some questions. When do you want to retire? What's your target retirement date? I showed you. That's one of the things I showed you. It's right here with worksheets. Like before I started into this section. Okay. And then this I emailed. The information that I'm using, I emailed to you when you were with Eric. I emailed it to you just so you had. Okay. Okay. All right. So all right. So anyway, so preliminary exit. So he wants 20,000 in monthly retirement. Here's the client information. You know, their gender, married, their age. The client's build. We ask these questions for the longevity tables. Client's build. Does the client smoke? How would a friend describe the client? Does the client exercise? And then just their retirement situation. The balances in their 401k, contribution, rate of return, cash, stocks, and bonds, yearly contribution, so how much they do, annual rate of return, and then the company information, which actually is kind of repeated from the next illustration, and then future growth. And then you'll see what that looks like when I go through the findings. So those are the main illustrations. Now we also have the PVI, which is the preliminary viability. It's a very good illustration too. I don't teach it this week because we don't use those regularly. Some analysts do. Some analysts really do. I actually never use it in the field, but it's actually very good. But you'll learn it later. Okay. So it's just too much information. These are the tax and the exit are the key ones. And then there's also a conventional lending analyzer, which also is good. That's used when a client is funding. It's very specific. So when it comes time to do one of those, somebody will guide you on that. Okay. All right. So are there any questions on what I showed you as far as the STS reports that you were supposed to, generate for your homework, or the Word document, or the illustration? Questions? Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to take 15, and then I will go through findings. Okay. So I will put the countdown on, and I will see you back. I have a lot of things that I have to do to get ready to for you to be assigned and all that kind of stuff, which is why I need this break. You might not, but I do. So, because I have a lot of in between the scenes things to do. So we'll start again in 15. Countdown.